Hello, everybody. Welcome to our German panel for Good is a New Cool Europe. I'm pleased to say we're joined today by Saskia Brüsten from Yunus Social Business, Gunar Porst from Deutsche Telekom, and Frank Bömers, who is the leader of one of the biggest purpose groups in Germany. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Great to see you.
Thank you for joining us. We're going to do a quick round of introductions. If you could maybe start, Saskia, with yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do at Yunus Social Business, please.
Absolutely. So at Yunus Social Business, we really have two sides. On the one hand, we invest ourselves in social businesses that have the focus on poverty in developing countries. And on the other hand, based on the principles that we've learned over a decade in investing in social businesses, we apply those principles to large corporations and say, how can you as a big corporation become more purpose-driven? How can you as a corporation really incorporate the ideas of social business and by that really transform the company as a whole to a more purpose-driven organization? So those are the two sides at Yunus Social Business.
And purpose is where our heart is. So this is the right conversation at the right time. Thank you for joining us, Saskia. Gunar, how about yourself?
Yeah, I've always been purpose-driven. Also, as a little boy, I didn't know that term back then. Yeah, but I always strive to improve things and to help others to grow. And now I'm working at Deutsche Telekom, which is a great company. We have a very strong purpose orientation. We have a strong purpose community, the Telecom ambassadors, which I'm also part of. And we are doing a lot of great activities around our purpose. And I'm also engaging a lot in schools, for example, to help them to digitize. So that's something that's really driving me at heart. So I'm happy to be here today and exchange with you on purpose and the impact it can have.
We can't wait to dive in, Gunnar. There's some fascinating projects that Deutsche Telekom is doing. And last but not least, Frank, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to purpose as well.
Yes, I've been working in the medical industry for more than 25 years, medical orthopedic rehabilitation and neurological rehabilitation. It took me quite a while. My journey to purpose was really via sustainable business, corporate sustainability projects. Then I met a friend in Spain who connected me with a professor that who has a chair in Barcelona on mission management. I participated in one of the conferences, management with a human face. And by the way, I started my career working for a family business. Then that turned into private equity. Went again to a family-headed business. Again, this was turned into private equity. And I saw that, so many businesses I worked for were turning into a leadership, just by key performance indicators, but they lost connection to their people. So they were not really leading on purpose. So I set up my own business, starting as a keynote speaker on purpose in the beginning of 2019, which changed due to the pandemic. Now I'm still doing my keynotes online, but combine it with a concept that I developed, which is called purpose enabling. Bring in purpose to organizations and helping their management team, the leadership, to really bring it to the different levels of the organization. I've founded a group which is called Leading on Purpose on LinkedIn, which is now, let's say, the biggest active group on purpose leadership in the German LinkedIn side.
Yeah, amazing. And Frank, I want to talk to you about the idea of purpose in Germany. First of all, this is the fascinating thing we found out. There is no word for purpose, or there isn't a direct translation for purpose in Germany. Is that right?
Yeah, well, there is. People would translate it with Sinn und Zweck, which would be like sense and goal or whatever. We just don't have a word that captures the concept of purpose. And there's really a lot of ideas flying around purpose. Many people think about climate or vision or the why, and most of that is right. There's nothing wrong with it, but I think just getting this whole concept is very in our German culture is not so easy. My experience in the bigger corporations, such as Deutsche Telekom, where Gunar works, they've captured the concept. But then again, most of those corporations are also in transformation. They they really struggle in bringing it really to all levels of the organization. And with the smaller, medium-sized companies, they have heard about it, but most of the leaders think it's a new buzzword. We had agile, now it's purpose. And in German, we have a saying, what is the next pick, which is being driven through the village. So it's really, I think it's really a task for all of us to make sure that that the concept of purpose is understood, and that the connection between where the talents of people are really met with what the company does. Really, that is where my passion is, to really come in that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Maybe also just to add to Frank's point, I think even no matter if the German context understands the purpose topic, I think to a certain extent, German companies do understand it, because they have not been driven as much as, let's say, the Anglo-American business by the shareholder value maximization. So I think that general thing is already slightly different than the Anglo-American model. And let's say if there might not be a word for purpose, but the issue is, I mean, people have these purpose statements. But the issue is, and that is not just a German problem in my eyes, they are not able to bring it to life. They're not able to make it concrete for people. And that is a question of course, am I actually reminding my team every day what we really stand for? But in some cases, and that's actually where we come in as Yunus Social Business, we try and create concrete examples of what this purpose means, and actually say, let's say you are a company that, I don't know, says, I want to bring health through food to people in the world. You don't just sell a yogurt, or you don't just sell like a muesli bar, but you actually really think about, how can I embody the best possible option of that? For example, I actually ensure that poor people are not malnourished anymore, and I sell them a product that really actually solves a real solid problem. And through that, you can actually embody your purpose even more and help people understand, like, oh, that's what this is all about. So to make a concrete other example, like one company said, like they want to actually transition to a zero plastics company. But in the industry that they were in, there was no plastic there was no thing that could actually replace plastics. And so in that process, we actually developed a recycling social business with them that at least ensures that they do not, every time when they produce new bags, they actually use a new oil, but they actually at least use a recycled pre-product into their production process. So to actually embody, this is the direction that we want to go into. And that's how we basically bring the idea of social business into big corporations, and creating these new financially self-sustainable business units, but that actually really serve a social mission, or you can also say serve a purpose, and thereby bring that bigger, fluffy purpose to life and make it concrete.
I also would say it's difficult in Germany to embrace the idea of a purpose, because the Germans usually are very analytical and structured and want to measure scientific, and purpose is more something spiritual, and it's hard to connect sometimes. It can be connected, and if you can do it, then it works, but it's really hard to get Germans really to embrace it, the original idea of purpose, and live up to it.
Yeah, Saskia, would you agree?
I think to a certain extent, that is true, that the typical, let's say, Americans, and I am half Canadian, so I have a little bit of the North American gene, are like awesome at storytelling, absolutely awesome at storytelling. And they don't feel any shame in putting themselves out there and like saying something very dramatic. In the German context, that would be met with like, oh my God, what's wrong with that person? Just be normal, right? So indeed, it is difficult at first to break through that wall, but my experience has been, once you actually do break through that wall, get through that icebreaker, and then go a little bit deeper, you definitely can connect very much at a human level with Germans as well, and perhaps even at a deeper level. It's just like that entry point is a little bit more difficult.
Exactly, and I think it's a great idea what Saskia said, to really make it more visible through real projects and stuff. But it's really what I wanted to talk about is really the disconnect that I see with many companies. They're really disconnected from the idea that the original founders had, and they never had the idea of just making money real quick and then leave. They wanted to change something. They wanted to move something, and really reconnecting whether it's a big or a smaller company, reconnecting them to the original point. It's really a good starting point also in our culture in Germany to think about the value of purpose and the value of connection.
Yeah, and let's talk about Deutsche Telekom, because it's fascinating to see how purpose has kind of started, the movement has started, Gunnar. So the Deutsche Telekom purpose is really around the idea of we won't stop until everyone is connected, right? So it's a telecom company, it's about connecting people. Talk a little bit about how it's manifested itself inside DT.
Yeah, well, the whole idea of our purpose, of our identity, as we also call it, started like 3 years ago when our board discussed what could be the idea of what we are doing, and then that we won't stop until everyone is connected came out. And this has been driving into the company, first top down also, formulating guiding principles and values and things like that. And also the board trying to live up to that. But then something fascinating happened. A few employees who were very proud to work as Deutsche Telekom employees, they took it up and they founded this Telecom ambassador community 2 years ago, and try to find other people who really were burning for this purpose at heart. Yeah, and so the community was growing, and it's now like 300 international people really embracing this purpose and using it to motivate and enable employees, to make customers happy, and also like to do something for the reputation of the company. And they are doing really crazy things and stuff. And if you look in their eyes, it's like they have taken drugs sometimes, where they are really enlightened and they have really crazy ideas, doing videos and also good things to the community. So, for example, a colleague of mine invented or created a virtual cafe for elderly people during the pandemic. So bringing elderly people together, explaining them how to use technology, offering them a platform, and then like singing Christmas carols or reading books or something like that. And this was really a great initiative. And he just did it because he wanted to connect those people to the rest of the world and the rest of the society. And there are lots of other things that go into that direction where those people really live up to that purpose. And they are known all over the company and really having an impact, inside and outside the company.
And Gunnar, something maybe closer to your business model is also the digitization of schools, right, as a project. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. That's actually a different initiative that started separately. So IT at School, the idea was, and it also started like 3 to 4 years ago, so before the pandemic, to bring IT into schools, because we are seeing every day, lots of us are fathers and mothers, and we are seeing every day the huge gap that we have between what's happening in our schools and what our children will need in the future in their business life. So they started to give programming courses, for example, in schools, and to enable teachers and create awareness on how important digitization is. And this really accelerated during the pandemic. Yeah? So it's a huge network also inside Telecom and outside Telecom. And we are really trying to help teachers, parents, communities to really get started and to move forward with digitization in schools, because it's so important that our children learn the skills and understand how the technology works, and also learn how to use it in a properly manner. Yeah, so to really work with it.
Yeah. Saskia, I'm curious, what are the other examples you hold up as being like best practice of how really purpose has integrated into businesses that you may have worked with?
I think there are a number of examples. So, for example, I mean, the example that I always use, but I do find it very strong, is actually the one of Danone, who started about a decade ago, or actually probably now 15 years ago, with this whole mission. And they, I mean, in their case, it's actually, they say, we want to bring health through food to everyone, to all. And before they were, of course, in specific markets, but then about 15 years ago, we decided to, together with them, start a social business that uses this mission or brings that purpose to life, in a sense that they actually have produced and sold a yogurt that's enriched with micronutrients and vitamins to the poor in Bangladesh. I mean, so that made it very concrete. It's a separate business that runs financially sustainable and solves this problem at the same time. And it sort of at the same time embodies that practical mission that Danone has. They've used this as a tool for their broader transformation, because I don't want to only talk about purpose, but really like how you actually transform the whole company into something better. So they've actually created an impact investing fund, and they invest in these types of companies all around the world. They've done many more things, including, for example, ensuring that the KPI system, so the management compensation, is actually dependent on the social and environmental factors, also including the long-term compensation. They've even changed the legal structure to now being an entreprise à mission, a mission-driven company, which is a legal form in the French context, even though they're still a publicly listed company, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the whole transformation. But I also see, and now I'm not sure if I'm getting it right, like IKEA is actually doing a lot. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what the mission statement is, but maybe something like entrepreneurship for all, or I don't exactly know. Maybe that's also one of the principles. I can't come up with it. But I see how they are definitely more purpose driven, in the sense that, throughout their business, they have very strict, let's say, guidelines of how they want to achieve the net zero in terms of CO2 emissions. They have a whole business unit where they work together. That's called the IKEA Social Entrepreneur BV, which actually works with social entrepreneurs and helps integrate them into the IKEA value chain. So, for example, we have a portfolio company, Rangsutra, that sells cushions to IKEA, and thereby actually employs several thousand women that are otherwise underemployed in India, et cetera, et cetera. So you really see that they're trying to bring this throughout their whole business, and are deeply ingraining it also in the way their culture is. So funny enough, when they recruit someone, they don't necessarily only look at like CVs and background and how qualified they are. But the main differentiator for why they hire someone is if they are a personal fit, which I find very interesting. So sort of culture goes beyond meritocracy almost. So this is that I found that interesting. So this is how they embody their personal purpose. And I haven't entirely exactly sort of formulated in the right way, but you see how it's working on all different levels.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what Gunar was saying, right? When you attract people with a purpose, then they feel a sense of personal purpose unlocked, which makes them better employees. That's the light shining in their eyes that Gunar was talking about, right? That you allow them to also find another part of themselves as well. That's a higher order part of themselves. We're gonna wrap up now, but I would like to ask each of you if you have any final advice. So if you want to advise people who want to go on this journey of how to create purpose-driven organizations or transform your organization, where would you start? Maybe starting with you, Frank, and then we'll go to Gunar and Saskia.
Well, first of all, I would recommend to have an open discussion on the management team, on whether it's the managers or the owners. What is really the basis of that company? What's the value of the company? What is right to exist, basically, and how far away are they from their roots? The roots when the company was founded. So really looking back to that, and then trying to look into the future. What do we want to be? What do we want to be to ourselves, to our customers, to our community? Really making the bold step, really, to find out about that. Not looking at certain performance figures, but looking really what is the inner core value of the organization.
Thank you for sharing that, Frank. Gunar?
I think the key is to combine a bottom-up approach and a top-down support, because if you only do it top-down, then nobody will follow. And if you only do it bottom-up, you might have purpose-driven areas, but you will not unlock the true value. So you need to combine both. And then you really can unlock the true value of a purpose-driven company.
I like that. Thank you, Gunar. Saskia, final thoughts.
I think my advice would be just get started. Sometimes we, especially Germans, like to overthink things, and like we're very kopfgetrieben, as we say in German. We're very driven by the head. And so what I always say is act yourself into a new way of thinking. So act to create a new way of thinking in the future. Because I feel that when you've created concrete examples, then you're also able to think differently in the future and live differently and really transform the whole company. So just start with some social business is my advice.
I love it, guys. Super powerful. Thank you very much for joining us at GoodCon Europe. Frank Bömers, Gunar Porst, Saskia Brüsten. I love this conversation about purpose in Germany, and hopefully the first of many conversations to come. Thank you for joining us.